On you guys, so today I'm bringing guys a brand new sports cards video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over some great long-term investments that I believe can be made a lot of money from. But before we get into that, I do want to say, as you guys know, I have my Sports Card Invest membership program, and near the end of April, we were buying up these Kareem Abdul-Jabbar PSA 10 1986 Fleers for roughly between 2,500 and 3,500. So around, I would say our members bought on average at 3,000. They're currently going for around 6,000 on Facebook groups and eBay. So nearly doubled our money in the span of a few weeks, despite the market being very down. So if you guys would like to join in on the profit, click the link down below to sportscardsinvest.com. You can use code April to get you 22% off our ultra high-end membership. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and hop right into this video. So essentially, I'm going to be going over a little bit more, I would say, underground long-term investments. And these are guys who specifically have lost a lot of short-term relevance, but I believe that these guys will hold great long-term relevance. So one of those players that I believe is going to hold great long-term relevance is Draymond Green. I know it may sound silly right now. A lot of people have been down on him for the last few years. I'd say the last 2 years. But in general, I really look at Draymond as one of the founding figures of the whole Golden State dynasty. Golden State has had... they had the best record in NBA history at 73-9. They were literally unstoppable. I mean, they won so many championships. They're going to always be known as LeBron's greatest rival. And Draymond was one of the centerpieces of that team. A lot of people like to forget and think of recent Draymond, but in the long term, significance, I think it's there for Draymond. He's also very controversial. He has a lot to say always, and he seems like he will always stay relevant. I definitely believe that a Prism auto of his, being at $300 in a PSA 10 with a low pop, that is a steal in my opinion. I think long term, there's going to be documentaries about the Warriors. They're always going to be remembered. And I think Draymond personally is going to be a coach, an analyst, or a very successful businessman when he's done with the NBA. So I think there's a lot of long-term opportunity here. I think in the short term, his prices may not go up. But I think once he retires, he will likely be a Hall of Famer. I know there's a lot of people who may be laughing at me in the comment section below. But I certainly believe that this guy... has a lot of significance around his name. He's, of course, very controversial, as I said. There's just a lot people have to say about him. He will always be remembered. So I think he's going to have, his prices are going to do very well long term. And another guy who I think has lost a lot of short-term relevance, but will have a lot of long-term relevance, is Carmelo Anthony. Of course, Carmelo will always be, the third best player of the 2003 iconic draft class, and I think that's going to really hold significance. This 2003 Topps Chrome is going to hold great long-term significance with LeBron's base rookie card, essentially, being that 2003 Topps Chrome. And Carmelo in general, when players are towards the end of their career and they're on the decline, they lose a lot of respect. People don't look at what they've done in their career. They're more so looking at them as how good they are right now. We saw that with Kobe, right? In the last few years of his career, he did not make the playoffs, and his prices were suffering. I mean, in general, his hype was really down. He lost a lot of, respect, you could say. And after he retired, everyone started to look back at his whole career and truly grasp where he is. And Carmelo's one of the greatest scorers of all time. I think that's quite undebatable. He's a New York Knicks legend, and they have probably the biggest fan base in the league. So I think that's all going to hold great long-term significance. So I think buying them right now is a very good idea. I mean, you can get a PSA 9 for, quite cheap. Compared to where I think they will be long-term. So I certainly believe it's a good time to get into some Carmelo Anthony cards. A Refractor BGS 9.5. This card for LeBron is over 30K, possibly around 40K, and for Carmelo's right around 860, which seems very fair. So I think that's a great buy right now. But without further ado, we're going to hop right into a little bit more of a high-end pick. But I think this has great... of course it has great long-term significance, but I think it's a great time to buy in right now. So as you guys know, if you go essentially a PSA 10 of these sold for 180K, but in fact the auction was not, according to PWCC and eBay, the auction was not essentially, it wasn't fair. So a lot of people were trying to bid and their bids didn't go through. There was a big issue with eBay's back end, and that caused a lot of bids to really suffer for these Jordans. So essentially the PSA 10 is not worth 180K. It's closer to 300K, but it was a failed auction essentially. And so these PSA 9s have really dropped. They dropped from around 24,000 to around 19,000. So I think that's going to bounce back up when the 10 bounces back up, and I think it's going to hold great long term. As you can see here, there's already some bids at 24, but there's also one available at 23. So a lot of fishy things going on with these, but if you can find a seller to sell to you for around 17, 18K, that is an incredible buy in my opinion. I think these are going to bounce back up very shortly. I think they're going to bounce back up to match the PSA 10's price, because the PSA 10's price is not in fact 180K. It's much higher, and the golden auction is actually above 200,000 already. So that $180,000 auction was a fluke, and I think that's gonna help the 9s rebound as well. So I think that's definitely a very good buy long term. And then I think in general, cards that are commonly fractionalized. So for example, a LeBron James Topps Chrome PSA 10. That's a very standard card, but a lot of people cannot afford it, especially younger folks in the hobby. So these are going to be cards that are fractionalized, and I think, the big future of the market is fractionalization, especially for the high-end market. This is going to be a very commonly fractionalized card. There's going to be, say, $10 shares and, say 1,400 shares distributed, and they're $10 shares, and now all of a sudden, everyone can afford to invest in LeBron, and I think that's going to drive the prices up long term. So I think it's a very smart time to go ahead and buy these cards that can be fractionalized, because I think they're going to be a hot commodity. A lot of fractionalized, such as Dibs, a lot of these fractionalization places are buying up a lot of these cards, and I think that's going to rise the demand for it, and a lot of people who are less, I would say a lot of beginners in the market are going to be able to afford shares of LeBron's, say Topps Chrome, and that's going to really cause the prices of these to go up, I believe. So I think it's a great time overall to get into these very significant cards. For example, Kobe Topps Chrome, PSA 10s, at one point, these were such a hot commodity, nobody was selling them, and everyone was buying them up. There were hardly any on the market. And right now, you see how many are on the market right now. So it's definitely a good time to take advantage of these panic sellers. I think if you can get these for around 13 to 14K, that's a buy all day in my opinion. I'm certainly putting my money where my mouth is. I think they're a good buy long term. And I think that eventually these are, when the demand picks back up, people forget. But a lot of these, if people are scared of the population reports, when prices go back up, you'll be surprised on how many of these guys stop selling theirs and start holding them. And that causes the supply to go down in the short term, and then prices can go up. So I think it's definitely a very good time to be buying these high demand, semi-low population cards compared to the demand. And on top of that, fractionalization is going to help these really gain traction. So I certainly believe these are very good buys. A lot of the staple cards I believe are good buys, because those are the cards that have dipped the most. Because a lot of panic sellers around these cards. So I certainly believe it's a good time to be buying all these cards. And in general, buying the dips is always smart if you're willing to weather the storm. If you're willing to wait for the storm to be over, if you're willing to wait until these eventually go back up, because cards eventually, I believe are going to pick back up. I know there's a lot of people doubting it right now, and I'm definitely well aware of that. I know there's a lot of people are probably in my comment section right now saying that, the market's done, this was a fad, whatever. But at the end of the day, when they reach price, in any market this is, when prices go so low, people start to see opportunities. Big time investors start to come in and see these opportunities, and it's a whole different game from there. So I certainly still believe in the market. I'm definitely still buying right now. I think it's a good time to buy overall. I'm not exactly sure when the bottom's going to hit, but at the end of the day, I'm willing to go through the ups and downs with these cards. And at the end of the day, also buy what you like. I think that's good so that you're not panic selling, and you're willing to, weather the storm. It's a lot easier to weather the storm when you love the card. But thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, if you would like to join in on the program, click the link down below. But without further ado, we're going to close out the video. I'm out. Peace.